morning. It is Welcome Wednesday, and our guests are going to rock your world today. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is a coffee break show. I'm Vickie Helm. Today, our guests are going to be Arnston and Garry Johnson, and they are going to help you succeed more than you ever thought possible. But first, this is brought to you by Metadime Digital. We're so glad you're here. Listen, if you're new to the Coffee Break Show, we go live every day. We talk about tips, tools, techniques, information, motivation, inspiration, and those things that are going to help you create thrivability in your life. And today is going to be fantastic. So if you're new here, do me a favor, put your name down below. We want you to be part of the conversation. And if you're one of the fans that are here with us every single day, hello, welcome. This is going to be a great show. I just want to get Ross and Garry, first off, just welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be really rocking good. Now, I want to start by saying we were talking behind the scene. I want to start by saying we noticed a common issue, and Ross and Garry have been business partners who have been working on this issue for probably their whole lives, really, trying to hack the brain to get it to perform better. Now, one of the things we talked about just recently was that when people go to conferences, they get excited. They're jumping up and down. And I know I've been to those conferences, spoke on the stages, and have been part of the audience. And I know how exciting it can be to be part of these things. And you take notes, and these speakers are inspirational. And you get up and you say to yourself, I'm going to go home and change my life. And then when you go home, all of a sudden, you can't implement what you learned. And although you want more success in your life, you're not actually sure how to get that. And I kind of want to hear from both of you. Why do you think that is? And tell us a little bit more about your infinity matrix.
Well, one of the things that, Garry and I have been in personal development for, you're right, most of our lives, all of our lives. I think I came out of the womb speaking. And, when we eventually met through the oddest of circumstances, we found out when we first met that our wives already knew each other and already been on a trip together. And we're like, what?
And you'd never met?
And we had never met. He and I had never met, but our wives knew each other.
We kind of did, but we didn't realize at the time.
Yeah. So we were putting all these pieces together. If you want to talk about the synchronicity of the universe, we were putting all these pieces together. Like, well, were you there? Because I was there. I was the guy back there. And I'm like, well, I was the guy over here, and it was one of those things where we just went, this was meant to be. Mm-hmm. And, we've never looked back since, And we both seemed to have the same frustration when it came to training and when it came to people trying to learn, is that it's kind of like affirmations. Affirmations are awesome. Okay. Everybody does their affirmations for 15 minutes a day, sometimes an hour. Mm-hmm. But what happens the other 23 hours of the day? Okay. Life gets in the way. And virtually it does. We just get bombarded, daily with everything that's getting in the way. And then we just kind of forget those. Oh, but I still have to do my affirmation. It becomes a habit. It becomes a very good habit, but it doesn't continue throughout the day. And yes. We wanted to find the people that we met in personal training and people that we've coached, and wonder, what happened? How come, you see them 2 months later, 3 months later, and they're like, oh yeah, I just, I was excited at first. And it's like, yeah, I know you were, but what happened? You're right back to where your books, your notes, your aspirations are just collecting dust now, and we wanted to change that.
That's such an important thing to happen because, Garry, I know that a lot of people come in and they're able to get massive degrees, like they have a master's degree or PhD or something. They're super, super smart. But if left on their own, they can't really action what they are capable of doing. And I wonder why that is. And what can you tell us about your infinity matrix?
Well, if you think about even like getting a degree in school, right? if you just get your degree in school and then you leave and you never practice it, then you lose that stuff, right? There's no implementation that goes on. And that was really the key that Ross and I saw was how do we put together something that helps people to actually implement what they're learning? There's tons of information out there. So we don't really bring anything new per se to the personal development or the peak potential industry. It's more of the delivery system that's more important, right?
Tell me more about that. That's interesting.
Well, and that's where it comes in. So let's say, for example, what if a lesson that we taught you in a workshop, a webinar, or even a podcast interview was the following, right? Your soul always starts at ground zero. And from there, you become what you think. So you should probably think like a hero, right? Sounds cool, little catchy, got a little mysticism in there, even some spirituality in there, right?
Beautiful, though.
Now, imagine if that was all we taught you, and then you ended the podcast feeling somewhat uplifted, inspired, even evolved, right? What happens in the next 24 hours, 3 days, 1 week,
a
year, right? How much of that lesson have you actually implemented? Probably not a lot, right? So let's roll it back now. Roll it back and go to the beginning of the lesson, and I break it down to more simple terms. Let's say the lesson is number 0, you become what you think, so think like a hero. Simple, straight to the point, right? And then what we do is we add in some anecdotes, some metaphors, in order to convince you that there's truth in and value in 2 things. Number 1, your thoughts create who you are. Mm-hmm. And number 2, you have heroes in your environment, in your every area of your life that you can emulate and pull from as resources, right? So you'd be better off to start off any goal or any intention thinking like you imagine they'd think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so once you come into agreement that lesson is true for you and has value, right? Then here's the piece now. Then I tell you to declare that lesson as something you own, right? And so not an affirmation, because I see them as different. I've been studying hypnosis and language technologies and things like that for many, many years, okay? And the difference I see in affirmations and declaration is an affirmation is something you hope there's like you'd like it to be true. It's it's someday maybe, and a declaration is something that you take ownership of. And so there's a claiming of that. And so if we get to that point where you can then say that the lesson is number 0, I become what I think, so I think like a hero. And you say it with conviction. Yeah.
I love it already. I'm riveted already. I'm so riveted. You have no idea.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me wrap it up. Okay. But here's the thing. In a workshop, you'd be in the same spot where you are right now. If you left, then 24 hours later, it dissolves. Here's the piece where Infinity Matrix, the Infinity process kind of takes it to a different level. So now you have a sense of ownership and soul connection to the lesson, right? Mm-hmm. Then I tell you that the universe will now remind you of this lesson every day for the rest of your life. Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, but for just a little while, you need to give it a hand. And all you need to do is this. When the universe, God, force, whatever you call the omnipotence of the universe, when it brings to your attention the number 0 in the matrix around you, okay, then take it as a signal to reclaim your declaration and say to yourself, number 0, I become what I think like a hero.
Love it, love it, love it.
Okay.
This is so empowering right now. I'm not even in the conference, but I will tell you the shift that's taking place right now, just the fact that your soul starts at 0 and then evolves. I mean, anybody can embrace that fact. Everybody can. A baby evolves, people evolves, the soul evolves. And I think the soul is the most powerful aspect of the human incarnation.
Absolutely.
Because
Yes,
it is
absolutely.
actually who you are. You
Yeah.
are the soul. That's who you are. So now you're utilizing who you are instead of who you aren't.
Exactly.
And that's the point here. And I'm digging this so much. You have no idea. I'm completely riveted. I just want to say good morning to everybody. And being able to declare something to the soul gives you ownership of that. Most people don't even think about that. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I want you to continue on because that matrix piece is just powerfully said. Keep going.
So now with that lesson as your lesson, right?
Mhm.
You end the podcast feeling somewhat uplifted, inspired, and involved, right?
Yep.
Now, how many times do you think you'll notice the number 0 in the next 24 hours?
A lot.
Right. And each time, what's happening?
I think it is an NLP trigger then.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's way beyond it.
Exactly.
It's
There's
brilliant.
definitely
Brilliant.
NLP encoded in here for sure. But what it actually does, it borrows from ancient Greek technology, which is called, there's in ancient Greek and Romans, they used memory techniques called the method of Loki, right? And the method of Loki was a mnemonic device for for creating visual maps so that you can remember things.
Fascinating.
Right. One of the first books I read when I started to study the memory was called The Art of Memory. It was written in like 1966, and it created a visual alphabet, right, which allowed you to then code in different things into that alphabet, and then easier to remember because the visual part of our mind can store so much information.
Wow. It was like a mind map kind of in that sense.
Right.
And that's where a lot of these the Tony Buzan and the all these other memory techniques and strategies have evolved from that premise of way back in the ancient Greeks and Roman times, right? And the evolution of things like psychocybernetics, which I told you it's one of the powerful books that I read in my early years. And hypnosis, and even the evolution of hypnosis and super learning from the way the Russians did super learning in the 60s, and then Tony Buzan and NLP, psycholinguistics. All these things have all been in the Infinity Matrix, Infinity Process. We've kind of melded them all together.
Interesting. It maximizes your potential for both learning and doing and remembering to do. This is brilliant.
That's the big thing.
That's genius, because what it does is allow you, and I know that when I'm working, I like access to my greatest potential, and I mean the greatest potential. And I specifically, especially when I'm writing books, and I've got 30, 35 of them now, but I get to the point where when I want to access, after 30 or 35, you're thinking, what do you got to write about now? Well, I believe that there's this infinite possibility that I can tap into, that my soul taps into. I believe your mind can't tap into it. There's another part of your inner genius that we leave untapped. And the beauty of this particular thing you're doing is that it helps you not only access it, but become it. Yeah. That's vastly different than accessing it.
Now here's the cool thing, though, Vickie, right? And this was also part of why we came up with this too, is that some would say, okay, well then all I need to do, Garry, is if it's just memory, I just need to kind of put Post-its here, Post-it there, that'll remind me, keep me of those things. What happens is, if you do things like that, the brain goes into what's called in marketing, because that's one of the primary things I do. It goes into what's called banner blindness. Right? It sees it so regularly that it just goes, it negates. It doesn't have the impact after a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Well, the beauty with the Infinity Matrix is you never know when that 0 is going to show up. You never know in what format. You never know when to inspire the conscious or the unconscious. So it's got this spontaneity in element to it that really allows it to be fresh. It allows it to be new. It allows it to be something that has an impact and can remind you, in times when you need it the most. Because that's when the unconscious mind is going to look for the solutions. When you're in those times, you don't know what to do in this, it's going to look for what are my resources in the universe, in the matrix that I'm experiencing. And we see it as two different matrices, right? So there's a matrix outside of us, right? And there's a matrix inside of us. Okay. So let's go through what the definition of that is. All right. So the definition of if you Google it, right, the definition of matrix is an environment or material in which something develops.
Agreed.
Right.
So soil could be a form of matrix.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
Absolutely. So the environment that we have outside of us is a type of matrix, as well as internally the thoughts we have, the feelings we have, the videos we run in our head. That's an internal matrix. And so the infinity matrix is the play between the two.
Interesting, because especially right now, I want to talk about that. Right now, the matrix is shifting, and that matrix is shifting outwardly, which is even forcing inward change right now.
It's pushing to the edges,
So let me ask you, I'm going to just put my, out on the limb there, Garry and Ross. Is this a deliberate man-made shift, or is it a deliberate divine shift, or both based on that infinity matrix?
Well, it's kind of what we discussed yesterday a little bit, is that, mindset is the master, but who's the master's master? Yeah. So Garry and I have developed something basically using some of the, for the lack of a better term, manipulative processes that are used with from advertisers, to where that's why logos are so dynamic. Okay, you don't need to have any kind of any kind of words. You just have to have the Nike swoosh.
Yes,
it's the same thing. It's a trigger. Okay, so that's how this process is working now. There's other people that have not as defined as ours. However, when you are looking at, let's use social media because it's probably the most powerful right now. Okay, is that these triggers and these certain words, certain messaging is coming through. And what I teach a lot of people is that step back, okay, observe what you're reading, think about what you're reading, and then respond to it. Don't jump into it. They're designed, because a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in the current events are ways of trying to steer your thought process. And we are, with what we're doing is we are saying, no, your thought process is yours.
Yes.
Not
it's
someone else's.
Declaration of claiming your own thought process.
Okay. You're not the hero. I'm the hero. You're not in control. I'm in control. And it constantly is bringing you back into the reality of, I am who I am. This is what I think. I went around and around. Yesterday, it was a perfect. I went around and around with somebody about a particular topic. I won't get into that, but they kept wanting to bring me to their level, and I'm like, yes, guys, and then friends jump on, and I'm like, guys, we're not even talking about the same thing anymore. I said, we're not even talking about what I initially said. I just said, are you making a decision based off of what everybody else has said? Or have you actually looked into this yourself? Have you checked into this? I don't need to. I don't need to because so-and-so said this. Well, who told so-and-so?
Yes,
so who's the master? So-and-so is the master.
That's yeah, that's the most beautiful thing, right? You said, because that to me, if I said, what script could I flip in the world, that would be it. The fact that we still think we're our minds and that we've squished our soul and buried it under bazillions of pounds of crap underneath.
That is correct.
It has, your soul has all knowingness, all beingness. It has every solution you ever wanted. And we forget that aspect of ourselves because it doesn't use words. It doesn't come up and go, hey, I think that we should blah, blah, blah. And so what ends up happening is we discount that part of ourselves when it is actually who you are. So that's how you basically fundamentally discount your whole life. Correct. This is like probably, in my opinion right now, the most important show to have right now, because the matrix of doing that has gotten to the point where the fake news and the propaganda has left everyone uncertain. Yeah. You're uncertain because you're using your mind. You're not in uncertainty if you're using this inner infinity matrix that they're talking about. Exactly. This is the point. And I believe, Ross, it's so interesting what you said about just being inside. It's like when you make the decision, who's the master? And the master, it's like, who's the master of the master? When you get to that point, when you realize this is how fundamentally the world gives their power away. Correct. And the only way to succeed is to take your power back. But you have to fundamentally understand what your power is and why it's important. And that's what I want to know right now, Ross. Garry, Ross, if you guys could just take a moment and say why it's important for them. It's like, what power comes back to you? What power comes back to you when you declare that for yourself, you for yourself?
So Garry say that.
Yeah. So Garry, many years ago, probably about 8-9 years ago, I came across a quote that just kind of going to sum up exactly what you said there by George Gurdjieff. And he was a mystic philosopher, spiritual teacher, middle to late 1800s, right?
I'm with you.
So 100 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And his quote was, I'll tell you one thing that will make you rich for life. There are two struggles, the inner world struggle and the outer world struggle.
Yes.
You must make intentional contact between those two worlds. Then you can crystallize data for the third world, which is the world of the soul.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about that. So what we're doing with the infinity process is putting you at a place on, instead of it the dichotomy of this or that, the good, the bad, the up and down of things. We're not interested in that. What we want to be is in the middle, where we're not impacted. So I call the metaphor I use is a teeter-totter, right? So if you're on a teeter-totter, this side's good, that side's bad, I got this opinion, you got that opinion, and all this stuff goes on, right? And we can buy into one or the other at different times for different reasons. What if you could have a way to get to the center point, right? So that you are not impacted by either of those, but you can choose which one you want by choice.
Interesting.
So we're not telling people what to think. We're just telling them to think.
Yeah.
Just think. So, stop waiting for somebody to hand you the answer. Stop waiting for somebody to hand you a pill, to give you the silver bullet. Stop. Decide for yourself. Just look at the information. And we're to a degree, I mean, people are in such a rush. Okay. I mean, I watch people develop their whole thinking based on a meme.
I know.
I'm like, are you kidding me? It's a meme. It's a text message, for crying out loud. Think for yourself. Take some time and research it. I don't have the time. You have more time than you think because you're reading all of this crap and such. So take that information, go, that's really interesting. I'm going to look into that.
Interesting. This is so, I want to go back. I want to ask a little question, because my experience of my soul, for some reason, when I was a little girl, I was very fortunate. My mother was #woke, and she would instruct me in all things to follow my soul in all things.
Mhm.
And one of the things she taught me is that the information from your soul doesn't come down this way. It'll either come this way or in here, and you give it words, but it'll tell you that. So for me, I realize that for me, I thoroughly understand that I am soul, and that the divinity of my soul is the most powerful asset I have for my lifetime, full stop. But when it speaks to me, it's like this inner knowing comes up and it says, go left or go right or get out or don't sign that or sign that, or you know what I mean? It is in constant conversation with me. And if I listen to it, the idea for me is surrender. Surrender to what you know and listen in. I don't often let my mind have a choice when it comes to when my soul says this. My mind's job is to help it figure out how it can. It's, in other words, my mind serves my soul, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the flip the script for me. And what I want to know is, when you're fully living in that infinity matrix, how much actual thinking goes on? Is it actually to the point where you're doing, working, seeing, and believing that your mind is actually having a choice, and then the soul is getting what it wants? Or is it living from your soul and getting your mind to work with the soul instead of think it is the soul? Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's a balance.
Yeah.
It is. When I first started really going intensively with personal development, a mentor of mine actually told me, he says, like, you just need to stop thinking, because you're overthinking everything. And, and I came from a business background. So it was just like, no, I have to, I have to think, I have to look at every different angle, which is fine and such. But it was also a hindrance, because I was, pushing down, that gut feeling, that soul. I was, my spirit was just literally, thousands of blankets were on top of it, just muffling it. And I wouldn't listen, because I'm like, no, this is it. And, but then, as I've progressed, I'm like, no, this is a balance. This is really, really a balance. And you can see people who go way too far in one direction.
Yes.
And then those are generally confused with, I'm doing what my soul is thinking, but really what they're doing is what they emotionally are thinking.
That's right.
Okay.
And they don't understand the difference between the two. So good.
Exactly. So again, it's simply that balance of two sides communicating and saying, this, what about this? Look at it differently. This is the soul telling the mind, look at this a little bit differently. Look at it from a different perspective. And the mind going, oh yeah, that does make sense. So, can we have an accord here? Can we have an agreement here? Yeah, I think we can make a decision. Okay. Now, it sounds like a long process, but it really isn't.
It's not.
What the infinity process does is it's that constant reminder. It's that reminder of, look at this, remember this. I know things are hectic. I know things are just coming down on you. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got this, because I'm a hero.
That's right.
And you just calm down. You just come down to center. And then you can make a better decision. You're not making an emotional decision. You're not in that fight or flight mode and such. You just calm down. It's like, okay, I got this. And it's all you.
Yeah, you get to what we call a place of variations or quantum potentiality. And what that is, it's the center point where you're not at the mercy of the internal or external variables, but instead you're in a place of complete choice. You want to exist. And, and in that place, when you're in that place of being in the now, by choice,
Mhm.
then you can determine what's
Yes.
is it, do you take the mind there? Do you take the,
Yes.
do you do a blend of the two? Because I don't think it's one or the other. I'm really a advocate of saying it's not this or that. It's this and that always.
Got it.
Exactly.
Right.
I want to pop up this question for you, Garry,
Sure.
because I think this is interesting. How would you identify the soul apart from the emotions, one's ceaseless mental activity or the numerous other identities we live in? And when I look at that, this is a big key for me because Garry said it very, very perfectly. A lot of people confuse the soul with the emotions. And when they feel blissful or they feel struggle, they quit because they feel struggle and they say to themselves, well, if it was easy, God would make it easy for me and the path would open up. And so they can't push through that struggle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you tell the difference between your emotions and your soul?
Well, again, and here's I think we go back into this conditioning that we've had, the external matrix we've been living in and experiencing. It has conditioned us to always be in the isolation mode. It's not a difference between soul. They're one and the same, but they contain. You can't have one without the other. Right? It's the souls feed the emotions feed the soul. The soul allows.
Yes,
for
it's a gateway. It's a gateway into the soul.
Absolutely. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
it's
the
not
question
one
would
or
be,
the other. It's how can they serve me and how are they serving me to experience the reality that's showing up for me on a basis?
I want to ask you this question, Garry. I just want to drop deeper, a little bit deeper.
Sure.
Who's the me that these three things are serving? I mean, if it comes back down to it, we've got to be the soul. There's something there. There's like this wakefulness.
Well, I think we're going pretty deep here. I think so.
Yeah. It's a coexistence.
It's my
It
in my
really
opinion,
is.
it's the collective we.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right?
It's the collective we. Thank you.
It's the one soul, one world. We're all collective. It's not a separation of. It's not compartmentalized. We got to stop doing this. That's the problem with our planet. Compartmentalize everything.
Right.
Yes.
Think it. Let's take this down to a smaller level. Think of how an atom looks. Remember how an atom looks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've got your proton, your neutron, and your electron. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. They coexist. If one is missing, it's no longer an atom.
That's right. You're
they
right.
Coexist.
I get it.
They can't exist without the other.
Experience in that atom.
Exactly.
Brilliantly done. That's brilliantly done. The reason it's so interesting is because in that matrix that he just described, Ross, we are taught. So in our matrix, we have soul, emotions, and brain. Soul, emotions, and brain. That's our matrix. We're usually heavy developed in one of the areas. And I think what the matrix, the infinity matrix is how you use these two things to help you achieve more success forever, long term. Mm-hmm. It's like moving from short-term happiness to long-term happiness, short-term success to long-term success. It's having a life that you actually can be involved in managing. It's the co-creative process of these three aspects of you that will create more of the divine that you're seeking, more of the success, the deeper relationships, these things that you want to have. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people would say that these are esoteric points, but they're simple, human-made, and what we've done is complicate them. And unfortunately, that means we need to look at it and start simplifying ourselves and go back to the basic points. Can you give us like 3 tips or something to help people invite themselves into the infinity matrix and say, well, let's start seeing my inner genius and be able to tap the field of possibilities and have more success? I don't care who answers it because I
ahead,
love
Garry.
both of you're talking.
Okay. So if I'm just thinking, because there's so many elements to that.
There are.
If we start with, let's say, for example, all right, let's do this. The one of the primary premises of the Infinity Matrix is that you're already doing it. You're already in the process of manifesting and creating this world moment to moment. You don't have to learn something new, right? You're already doing that. What we need to do is give you more control over how that happens, right? So the first thing I would do is start to look at what are the signs, symbols, imagery in the world around you, and the impact that's having on your thought process, and the impact that's having on the emotions you feel, the impact that's having on the direction you take. Beautiful. Start to question those. That's the first thing we need to do, because we need to look at, and understand that there's a lot of things out there that are influencing us that we didn't have choice over.
Yes, that's correct.
And right down to very basic things like, something like a okay, when you leave the house and you drive to a location, on the way from your house to the location, there's a ton of different sign symbols that you have to see and observe, right?
Yeah.
Right? Some of them are speed signs, right? So when you see the speed sign, right, you see the 2 digits on there, right? Whether it's 30 miles an hour or 30 kilometers if you're up in Canada, whatever the number is on there, that number has encoded in with it a whole bunch of different lessons and learnings and experiences that instantly are in your mind and in your body, right? Yep. The individual digits were taught that, the number 3, for example, it means, the accumulation of 3 things, 1, 2, 3, you add them up, or it may have positive or negative associations to it.
Sure.
Same with the 0, and then combined they have, and then there's times when maybe you were going over that and you saw a little red light in the back and you, oh my gosh, and so now that has another emotional.
Especially that.
Right? All those things are coded in there and instantly impact what you think, how you think, when you think it, and what you do.
Absolutely.
So what we like to say is, well, let's start thinking about that and say, hold on, what if I were to start to take control of that message so that because there's value in some of those lessons, right? But what if I was able to take that same symbol that's out there in the we've created as a part of our matrix, so why not utilize it? If I was to take that, but give it a whole new set of learnings and and messages and inspiration and insight and wisdom that speaks directly to me. Right? And that's the premise of what we do. Now, the Infinity Matrix, we have, I started off with, number 0, I become what I think like a hero. Well, that's one hack, right? And 1 degree of integration into the matrix. And we have 21 degrees of integration for 10 primary hacks.
Wow.
It's intensive. It really is.
I'm riveted. Wow, 21.
Yeah.
I'm so curious right now. I'm like, okay, does he want to share them, or what do we do? Oh God,
okay, so
exciting.
Vickie, do me a favor. Do me a favor. If you can focus in on my screen, I want to show you something. Okay, so this is a rubber band.
Yes.
I'm trying to get this into the screen here. Okay, so this is a rubber band. And back up. There we go.
Yeah, we go.
Okay, so this is a rubber band. So this is signifying, this is our conscious mind right now. Okay, this is how it is all the time. Now, when we go and what we were talking about earlier, we go to a seminar or we start to do our affirmations. Now we're putting a conscious effort onto that conscious mind to expand it.
Yes.
Okay. And then we do some more, and then we expand a little bit further.
Yes.
Okay. But this rubber band is putting a lot of pressure on all of my fingers.
Yes, it is.
I can't maintain it. I won't be able to maintain it unless I am putting conscious effort on this task. This task is to lose weight. Okay. I'm going to lose weight. 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 I'm going to, huh? I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. Huh? It's what infinity does is it expands that consciousness to where there's no conscious effort towards the expansion. It just keeps expanding and it just keeps expanding. It's kind of like what Einstein says, is like, once you've learned something, you can't go back.
That's true.
You'll never unlearn it.
Unlearn it. Yeah.
Okay. And infinity can go so deep into the subconscious mind that that expansion is just happens. And then every day when you see that stop sign or you see that number or whatever triggers is developed for that individual and such, it just keeps getting expanded. Okay. And it reinforces the expansion to where then this becomes the new normal. Now this can be applied. We have plans for applying this to a number of different programs, to where I'll give you an example is that I do a lot of coaching for people with diabetes, because diabetes too, especially, is just simply a series of habits that progress into a series of symptoms. And I'll work with people and I'm doing good. And one of my clients just stands out with me. Because he was making such progress. He was making so good of progress. He actually called me nervous because he goes, my numbers are so low. I'm like, yeah, I know. This is our goal. Because I've never had numbers like this. I'm like, I know. This is our goal. This is your goal. And he was so excited. And then his job sent him to another city.
Oh.
To another environment.
Oh.
Okay. And then he didn't so then he just caved back in and went back to his normal old habits. And so one of one of my goals was, all right, how can I fix this? I need to take his environment and let it go along with him. And that's what infinity does. That empowering environment is continually traveling with you, no matter what. If you're sitting in front of your computer doing your affirmations and such, as soon as you leave, they're gone. Okay. The rubber band compresses. This is, you're doing your affirmations and now you leave and work gets in the way and now you've gone back. Okay. But if we can take that environment, we can take those affirmations, we can take those messaging along with you, no matter where you're going throughout the day and such. That's the trick. It creates a very, very deep habit. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the magic of the infinity process, is that no matter where you go, we call it learn it once, live it forever.
God, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And there's an interesting thing in one of the books that I've written. I talk about the difference between change and transformation because people get them confused.
Exactly.
And change is consistent. It's always changing. Transformation is that learn it once and it's with you and it's fully with you.
Right.
And oftentimes it only takes once. It just takes one time to learn it and the transformation happens. Correct. And it's just with you, especially if it enters your soul in that way and you become that. And the difference between living and becoming in that. You guys, I'm so fascinated by this. And everybody is just talking at a mile a minute over on this side here. I'm trying to keep up with it, but it's absolutely just so many people. Our mind is like a garden. We can grow flowers or we can grow weeds. That's true. That's that zero, I think, like a hero thing. I think that is going to stay with me for a really long time. I love that analogy so much. Susie, nice to see you on. Napoleon Hill, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. I have conversations with myself just as I'm drifting off. It seems to be working. Is this close to what you are sharing? ?
if you're drifting off, if you're having these conversations while you're drifting off, you're going to sleep. When you are just falling asleep, that your mind is the most open, and it will absorb more of that information. Same thing as when you first wake up. Those are the two points in the day that your mind is the most open to new ideas and such, and it will be more absorbing of new positive input or negative input for that matter.
Yeah, I mean,
a person that watches the news just before they go to bed, is probably not having the greatest of days the following day, or the person that turns on the news as soon as they wake up. When we talk about the matrix, there's that aspect of the infinity matrix where, you start to learn to recognize the narratives, and as the narratives change, especially in this day and age now. I watch a little bit of news, but it's interesting because I can be sitting there watching the news and I'll be listening, and all of a sudden I'll just go, what? And then I just snap. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. The narrative just changed. Okay. They just said with as much conviction, the opposite of what they just said yesterday, because the narrative somehow the master's master has sent down a message saying, I need you to promote this now. We're changing. We're going in a different direction. That's where when I say the master's master is that what messages are you getting? And this could be the exact same person on the screen talking, but the message is just changed. And I'm like, oh, their narrative has changed. What else is going on? And this is, again, observe, interpret, and respond. So then what I would do in a situation like that, then I would start finding other sources to find out what's going on, because the narrative has changed. But most people don't catch on that. They just don't get it. I try to teach a lot of people that I know, just personal friends, this. And I'm like, listen, this is what you have to start doing.
Yeah.
And when if you really, really want to know how deceitful this is, watch a commercial.
Absolutely.
Watch the commercial. Watch the commercial again with no sound. Listen to the commercial with your eyes closed. Okay. It's all these overlays on top of each other and such, and they all are designed to penetrate. And then you see it over and over and over again. Okay. And we're doing the same thing, but we're making it empowering. We're taking it and changing it.
That's the whole point right now, because to me, when you were talking, Ross, this is so important. The war is not with bombs and bullets. The war is for your mind.
Exactly.
And if you don't take control of your mind, somebody else is, full stop.
Correct.
And in that, they are leading you, because when you watch TV, you go right into a delta brain and you're just being led along. Things are calm and quiet, and you're just taking the information without any discernment about what information you want to allow in. And some people feel like the only way out is to shut it off completely and allow yourself to choose something, a book or something, choose a documentary or something that's going to educate you or help you discern. And I think the number one thing they're trying to remove from the world is discernment. It is the ability to think. I don't think even people realize, how did I even think? What did I think? That the basis of learning to just have reason and evaluate. And people think that speculation and opinion are thinking, and they don't understand what it is to think in a proper way that they help them discern the truth, even when they're looking at it. And I believe one of the interesting things that you said, Ross, is like, it's to the point where we have to learn to think. And like, how do we learn that? Well, first you have to be willing to learn to think, because we rely on our thinking so much that we often give into it because it's easier. We don't stop it in the middle. It's work to stop yourself, put your ego in your back pocket and think to yourself, I wonder how I could see this differently.
Yeah, correct.
Or I wonder, and when you get to the point where you're like, what? When you're doing that, you are a trained mind right now. When you can stop and see the narrative switch midway, then and I think that learning to think is so, so, so important. Hi, you guys. I see you all there. There's so many questions, you guys. I'm trying to pick those, that are here and statements that are here.
Well, while you do that, let me follow up on the learning to think thing. So the way that the learning to think happens with the infinity is the infinity process. What happens is we have the system set up so you have a steady and consistent disruption of those messages.
Yes.
Disruption that we create are disruptions that are empowering, that are serving, that you've coded into the matrix to serve you. And when that happens, it allows you to then step out of the let's call it society's matrix. We step out of society's matrix, and we then can have a more meta view of it and say, okay, well, which part of that do I want to actually be involved with?
That was a good NLP.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you the meta position.
Thank you. You saw that. I saw that. We saw that. Thank you. I want to say this is so important. Listen, I know that there are a lot of people that are watching this show right now and that are watching it after. And if you are, put #replay below. But I know that you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I don't know what to do, or I've lost everything, or I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy with my life and I want it to change, or I want to get more and do more. I feel there's more in me and I don't know how to get that out. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, I need something different than what's already out there. As much as I love what's already out there, there's only so many times you can run through coal, jump up a rope, jump off things to inspire more success from yourself. Yeah. There's only so much time you can yell that I'm a warrior, I'm a warrior. Yeah. And if it's not working for you, because I've seen thousands of you go through these, pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go home and think that after these boot camps, seminars, conferences, specialty things, and nothing is different. Nothing has changed. Nothing has been there. What if in this moment you could change your inner matrix and have that? What if you could actually learn to work with all parts of you so that you can achieve? Maybe the issue is that we're going outward too much and not inward too much. And what I want to ask right now is, if you're wanting to make a change and you're thinking now's the time for me, how is it that they can work with you? How can they get a hold of you? What can they do to be a part of what you're doing? Which I think is over the top fantastic. It's exciting.
Well, we're going to hopefully in the show notes, there's a link that'll take you to actually our Facebook group. It's a private group.
Oh, yep, and, there it is.
So that's what where we're focusing most of our energy on now. So
I'm just going to interject here. So Ross, sure. Karen put in the Be Better Tech, but the group itself is facebook.com/group/the Infinity Matrix.
Correct. And I'll put the link in the notes as well on the replay.
Yeah.
But this is where a lot of like-minded people are talking and communicating. We have some really interesting topics that we're putting out there. A little more on the esoteric side, but we like it because that's where people need to be. But again, still wanting to create that balance for people. And what Garry and I have found with a lot of people that we've worked with, and the people that have really integrated the infinity process and such when they're dealing with the matrix, is that life goes from, oh my God, to, oh, I am God.
Yes.
I create my own world.
Yes.
And such. This is the reality that I choose to live in. And you're constantly doing what you want to do, and you're constantly upgrading your reality day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute.
And I
Yes.
want to speak to those people who just got frightened because of what he said. I remember the first time
Yes.
I heard somebody say that to me,
Mhm.
I was in my 20s and I was shaking, scared. I was like,
Sure.
I can't possibly be God. I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. Whoever is saying that to themselves right now, there is a part of you that understands deeply that you are capable of more than you are or doing. And when you say you create your reality, and if you admit that you can be godlike or God, because I'm trying to make it soft for you right now,
Sure.
it makes you accountable. It makes you to the point where you are going to step into this
Yeah.
gently and makes you accountable for the reality you have created.
Yeah.
And now you
That
can
is
be
correct.
accountable for the reality you want to create.
Very
This isn't
wise.
about the secret. This is beyond that. That's much deeper. This
Yeah.
is about you being able to transform anything. And that is your life, your health, your wealth, anything, your relationships, whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the first thing you have to accept is that you are the God that is going to be transforming it into that. And I want to thank you for being brave enough to say that, Ross, because a
Well,
lot of people get shook up when they hear that.
they do, and I actually have to hand this over to Garry because he's actually the one who came up with that terminology, and because it is bold.
It's very
But it goes
bold.
back to what we were talking about in the very beginning. People have to understand it will not be handed to you.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Your life will not be handed to you. You're either going to be living your life or you're going to be living the life that somebody else has decided for you.
Yes, that's the key.
That is the
Yes,
key.
that's the
And
bottom
such.
line.
And
I
some
love
people are
that.
happy. Some people are totally happy with the way that their life is at this particular point. Great. Fantastic. We're not for you.
Yeah.
This isn't for you. If you are content and absolutely happy in every aspect of your life, that is fantastic. I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. Join in. On the call. Because maybe there's a faster way, and we're always looking for how do we improve.
Exactly. Really. But we also find that a lot of these people who are so unhappy and such that there's something is out of balance.
Yeah.
And whether too much success, well, what did you give up to have that too much success?
Yeah.
I don't want to leave, I want to stay at home with my family and do nothing else. Well, okay. It's all balance. And that's what we try. We do teach is that, create a balance. And what Infinity does is it pretty much to a big degree is constantly asking you every day, am I in balance? Am I in balance? Am I in balance? Okay. It doesn't mean you have to be in balance every single moment of the day and such. But if you take your life as a whole, take your week as a whole, take your month as a whole, is it balanced? And if it's not, why? Well, I'm working on this one project. All right, good. Now you have identified it. I'm working on this one project. Now, is it I'm working on this one project this month. I'm working on this one project this month. I'm working on this one project this month. That's out of balance. Mm-hmm. So find it. And
I'm going to add just a little bit to that. And sure. As far as the balance thing, balance to me is not a neutral place. And I think it's important for people to understand that.
Yes.
Right? So the balance to me is the balance that's slightly tilted towards evolution. Okay, because I believe that's in our nature anyways. That's otherwise, as a species, we wouldn't have evolved. You got the negative, you got the positive. We have to have been slightly tilted towards the positive in order for us to be who we are today, right?
Agreed.
So I think that's what we're looking for, and in that, to remember a lesson I was taught by one of my teachers years ago is that you are so powerful. Yes. So powerful that you're unaware of how powerful you are, and because you do it so automatically, right? You create things automatically. We're in this state of constant perpetual manifestation anyways.
Agreed.
And so you're doing it without even knowing you're doing it.
That's right.
That's how powerful we are.
That's right.
The idea is to become more aware and more conscious of what we're doing, so that you can utilize the already existing tools in the internal and external matrix that you exist in to create miracles.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
And you'll know that you've created a miracle, because a miracle, again, this is my teacher teaching me this, a miracle is just the big shifts that occur from one matrix reality to another.
Ooh, I love that. That's true for me.
Yeah.
I can feel that.
You can actually see the difference in between them, because I think that the miracle can still happen where you've got these mini steps along the way, and then all of a sudden something happens, right? But it's when you have those big shifts, one matrix reality to another, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a miracle. We're doing it all the time anyways, right? And then finally he said that, and to remember that the universe is unconditional.
That's right.
So unconditional that even if you encode and reinforce the idea in your matrix that you can't do something, that the universe it's going to present you everything you need to support that belief system.
Beautiful. Correct. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Positive or negative, it will support
positive
whatever
or negative.
you are asking it to do.
Absolutely.
And
gentlemen, this has been the most amazing conversation. I got to tell you, I'm listening, and my heart is so full.
Thank you.
It's full. It's so joyful. And why it's so full is sitting in the truth for an hour, sitting in the deep truth for an hour is some of the most fulfilling space I love to enjoy sitting in.
For sure.
And I'm like, the people have gone wild today. There's been so much conversation going on. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and doing this. This was so unexpectedly pleasant and enlightening and enriching on so many levels. I may have to ask you back to the show in a little while. You guys, thank you for being here. This has been the Coffee Break Show. Garry Johnson, Ross Arnston, go into their Facebook group, know them, get them. This is about having the life that you dream of having, that you know. It's about empowering yourself and creating and living in miracle to miracle to miracle to miracle. I want you guys to have a blessed day. We will see you next Wednesday with our next guest. But today, thank you, Ross. Thank you, Garry. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Mwah! Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
That's right.
We'll be answering.